welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I am talking to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace, in the communities, and we're talking to them about how they got started in their career and what are they doing to accelerate. And today I have a very special guest, my good friend, Roseanne Garza. Roseanne is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Kirby Lane Café. She is also the Assistant State Director for Texas SHRM, an organization that oversees 33 chapters in the great state of Texas. And she is a dynamic leader. And I'm so glad to have you on the show today, Roseanne. How you doing?
Hey, Bruce. I am well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So I want to dive in, but I want to kind of just let the viewers and the listeners understand a little bit about Kirby Lane Café. I got to experience your restaurant in Austin back in January, which seems like forever ago. Share with the group what Kirby Lane's all about.
Yeah, so Kirby Lane is a privately owned and operated restaurant group here in Austin, Texas. We have roughly about 800 team members, and we are the largest privately owned restaurant group in Austin. So with that, we have 8 Kirby Lane locations, and then we actually have a little over a year ago, we opened a sister concept, which was completely different, completely outside the box for us, and that's called High Note Kitchen. And so we have 2 different concepts now, 9 total locations, and like I said, about 800 team members. We are ultimately known for our breakfast. Kirby Lane is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 364 days a year. And most people love us for our breakfast at any and all times of day and night because we serve everything all day. And we're also pretty famous for our queso. And our queso actually, in 2019, our queso actually went on a SpaceX mission to the moon.
Okay, fun fact there. I did not know that. That is fantastic. I think I actually got to experience the High Note Cafe at the Texas SHRM. Okay, yeah, that's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I learned some. One of the things I enjoy so much about these podcasts, I get to learn something new every time I talk to a different guest. I did not realize you were 24/7.
Yeah, we are 24/7, which is with it, you know, I've been in restaurants and hospitality my whole life. Like I've never had a job that wasn't in hospitality. And so that was one of the biggest changes for me. There were 2 things that were really different when I got to Kirby. One of them was that it was the first time I'd worked for like a privately owned and operated company. And the second thing was that we were 24 hours. And so that was really interesting. There was an interesting adjustment, but it was really fun. And now I can't imagine not being 24 hours, right? Like, and so much of our business is overnight, right? And it was really funny when we first decided, we didn't used to even close for Christmas. And when we first decided to start closing on Christmas, we had like a moment where it was like, does anyone even have keys to lock the door? Because we never locked the door. So funny, interesting, funny times.
It's the little things. It's the little thing. And for those who don't know, I actually met Roseanne when I started serving on the Texas SHRM State Council. Roseanne's actually my boss. She oversees the CLAs and the district directors. And so I've had so much fun. We're going to talk about Texas SHRM, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Kirby Lane, but I want to start the segment. I always like to start with, you know, it's all about story. And I would love to, for you to share your story. Like, where did you grow up and how did you navigate to the world of HR and eventually what led to the CHRO?
Yeah, so I am from Texas, originally from deep South Texas. I grew up on a farm in a small town called Rio Hondo, which actually means deep river. And there is a deep river that basically runs around the town. Very small, near the border, near Brownsville, and made my way after high school to Texas State, which at the time was Southwest Texas State University, SWT. During my time there, it switched names. So that was also an interesting experience to go through, having your university completely switch names in the middle of your education. And after San Marcos, I loved this area. I actually spent a little time in Dallas. After undergrad, I ran up to Dallas and I was there for a year. And decided that I just loved Austin and I loved the hill country. And so I came back here. I've been back here now for, I don't even know. I'm not going to age myself by any means. So I won't tell you how long I've been here, but it's been a long time. And love Austin, loved the culture and the people, and really, really felt like it was where I wanted to make my home. And so came back here. I spent some time, I worked for Brinker for a really, really long time. That was kind of the longest stretch of my employment until my current job, and loved my time there. Really like cut my teeth in all things operations of restaurants, service. I learned everything, a ton about service at Brinker. Left there, spent some time, actually switched over and did hotels. And I went to the Driscoll downtown, which is a historic hotel here. Loved my time there, enjoyed it. And then eventually sort of got recruited to come to Kerbey, which was amazing and wonderful. And I've been here now 14 years. And when I started with Kirby Lane, it was an HR department of one. And so that was a very interesting, that was an interesting time for us because we had decided as an organization that we wanted to grow. And I wanted to be in a place where we were experiencing growth. And I wanted as an HR person to really become a master of that to some extent. And so Kerbey was the perfect home for me. Plus, like, our culture like aligns perfectly with me. Our core values, I believe in 200%. And so I've now been here 14 years.
Now, when you went to Texas State, were you studying HR at that time?
I wasn't. They didn't. Again, you're trying to age me, Bruce. It's not going to happen. They did not have a HR program back then. So Texas State is Bruce and I both know, and now the listeners will know, Texas State has a wonderful undergrad and grad program for human resources.
Yeah.
And at the time they did not. So it didn't exist yet. I would have totally done it had it existed. But mine was in communication studies. So I really studied sort of organizational communication, nonverbal communication, strategic planning. And it was really in my final semester of college that I took, it really wasn't a capstone course, but the professor really used it to prepare us for the workforce. So we had to make a resume and, apply for jobs that we would be interested in. And I found myself gravitating to HR job after HR job after HR job. And so that was my sign that this was where I was supposed to be.
I love that. Let's give a shout out to Texas State SHRM chapter, because that is a phenomenal chapter. I got to meet a lot of the group there at the, it was the Student HR Games last year in Waco. And so phenomenal. I think it's interesting though that, you're talking about how, communication. And I was reading Sherman actually posted a question about what is one skill that people can work on to upskill, to continue getting better. And I actually posted communication. And because it's so important, because we're communicating with people every day. Isn't that the truth? And to hear you're a communication major, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I loved it. I really, really nerded out with it. It was so interesting to me to really start to understand the psyche behind the way that we behave. And we would do these really fun projects where you had to be in an elevator and you had to stand way too close to someone when it was just you and another person in an elevator. So college was a good time. I enjoyed it. I would go back. I would do it again in a heartbeat because I learned so much there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's how we get better. We get in uncomfortable situations. When I started Armstrong back in 2004, I enrolled in Toastmasters. And I remember my very first meeting, I couldn't get anything out of my mouth other than And it really helped me out so much. I took Toastmasters for a couple of years, and that was really a big part of my growth. And so when I hear somebody talk about communication, I know the importance of that. So you're the CHRO, and you're busy. I want you to, you had talked about how you started it, from the ground level. I mean, you worked at Brinker, you worked at, hotel, you're navigating through the process. And so talk about, you're an HR department of one. What was that journey like? You're excited about the growth, but listen, you're one, right? What was that all about?
So immediately, like just give you, kind of an understanding of where we were. We had 4 locations at the time,
Okay.
and we had around 300 team members. And the plan was to get us to a point where we could grow, create some systems that helped us to promote from within and create leaders from within. And then ultimately get to a point where we were the premier restaurant employer in Austin. And I luckily, Kirby, I came in, had an amazing reputation. We are, like I said, privately owned and operated, and we've been around since 1980. So we just celebrated our 40th year.
Mm.
And what makes us so wonderful is that the community of Austin has always supported us, and they've helped us to get where we are today. And our ownership always had a little bit of a different philosophy. We were, there's an old song. It's like, I was country before country was cool. Well, we were like recycling before it was cool, and we were composting before it was cool, and we were using energy efficient, bulbs and things before it was cool, and we were donating food, and we were, creating community impact programs way before that was absolutely just a part of everyday business for all organizations and across industries. And so I really, really loved what they stood for. I loved the stories that I heard about how well we treated our team members. And so all of that led to a wonderful foundation for me to really come in and say, what are we missing? Like, what don't we have? What do we need to do? And so that's really what I did. I came in and I did something that was a little bit different than probably what other HR people do. I spent my first 6 weeks while that I was employed here not doing HR at all. I actually went into the restaurants, and like I said, we had 4 at the time. All of them were 24 hours, and I worked as a server, as a cook, as a busser, as a hostess. I think I bartended like one day. They did not let me cook eggs for very long because I'm very bad at omelets. But I spent my first 6 weeks here working side by side our team members and working all shifts, be it AM, PM, or late nights, to really like learn what do they go through on a daily basis, who is our guest, who are our team members, which we have a very, very diverse group of team members. And so I really spent my time focused on that and determining what are they missing, what do they need, how can I in human resources best support them, what programs do we need to create to make it a better place. And so yeah, did that for my first 6 weeks, and then came out of that and had a long to-do list.
long to-do list. I love that.
So long, in fact, that same list, and it kept getting added to the longer I was here. That list took me about 2.5 years to finish. Not because Kirby was bad, but just because there was so much potential to do so much more and to figure out the best way to support our team. And so it took me about 2.5 years. And that was everything from rewrite the handbook to create a benefit program. We didn't have benefits really at the time. So we were one of the very first, before the Affordable Care Act, we had benefits for every single team member, and we still do. We offer benefits to every single team member, which is highly abnormal for the restaurant industry. And so, I did creating an employee assistance program, and you name it, getting workers' compensation. We didn't have workers' compensation when I got here. So things like that.
You talk about a department of one, but now, you've really grown the organization. How many do you have on your team now? And when was it that you got to actually start adding team members to the HR department?
I now work with a team of 3 other people, which is wonderful. I can't speak highly enough. Like, the 3 people that I work with, I would walk through fire for the 3 of them. And I know that they would do the same for me. And that's amazing to have that in a team. We have a really great team here. And it wasn't until 4 years in. So I spent my first 4 years really as an HR department of one. And then in that 4th year, a couple of really great things happened. A, I got to add someone to my team, which was wonderful. But B, we actually got a new CEO. So our owners, which are David and Patricia Ayer, have a son, and their son actually decided that he no longer wanted to be an attorney and that he was going to come and learn the family business, which he already knew the family business, right? But he was going to become involved in it on an everyday basis. And so Mason came in, and I am lucky enough to work side by side with Mason on pretty much everything. And he has, changed this organization for the better.
Love that. I wanted the listeners out there and anyone who's an HR department of one now, I wanted them to hear that story, because there's opportunity. You just keep grinding. I mean, it took you close to 4 years to be able to get to a point where you could go to the next level as well. And so I'm curious, now that you're CHRO and you can kind of look back, are there any areas that you like a little bit more than the others? I mean, you talked about benefits. You've got to recruit. There's a lot of different things that HR is responsible for. Is there anything in particular that you enjoy most?
Around 2013, I worked on a project with our training and development team, and it was called our leadership growth model. And we created a program that ultimately took anyone that was from a server, a host, a busser, a cook, an entry, level job, and gave them the path, the knowledge, the skills, the abilities. And it's literally a book that we created that helps them to understand, here's how you get all the way to being a managing partner, a general manager within our locations. And so that was huge for us. Like I said, one of the big reasons I came here was for growth. And I spent the first 4 years solo, really kind of building some platforms, fine tuning some things, adding some, benefits. And then in 2010, I brought in another team member. We opened a new location, and that was the first time that we had opened a location since the year 2000. So it took 10 years to open a fifth Kirby Lane, but then we did open that. And then from there, we just kind of started, chugging along, opening more and more. But I would say leadership growth model in 2013, that was huge. That was a huge project for one. I mean, it took us basically an entire year. And it really taught the team, and it gives them a pathway. You can be anything that you want to be at Kirby Lane. Truly, you can. And this helped the team to see on paper, what do I need to learn? What do I need to do? What classrooms do I need to attend? What continuing education do I need to do as an individual to get to the next level, to get promoted? And so I'm happy to say that program has been a huge success, and 90% of our management team is homegrown.
Wow. That is fantastic. You know what I love about that is in 2017, SHRM put out a survey for HR Department of One, and they asked the question of all the different things that you do, what is the most important? Is it, retention, recruiting, all these different things. And leadership development was number one. And okay, so that showed that they think that's important, but here you are sharing the message that, we not only saw that it was important, we put that into action. And now look at you, 90% homegrown. I mean, that's terrific. I love that. Love that story. Okay, so share with me, like, as you're going along, did you do it by yourself? Did you have some mentors along the way? Have you had, share a little bit about some of the people that have impacted you. And I always like to say, it can be personal as well as business. Who are some people that have been mentors for you in your career?
So I have been lucky enough to have several mentors throughout my life, and I still have mentors to this day. My first mentor, I have to give a shout out to my mom. My mom was my very first mentor. I grew up, like I said, in South Texas, the youngest of our family, and my oldest sister is actually special needs. And so my mom really was her number one advocate, and really taught each of us children what it is to be an advocate for someone. And so that actually helps me every day in HR, because I still see my mom fight for my sister. And my sister grew up in a time where they didn't really have special programs. And so my sister actually went to the same high school that I went to and took the same courses that I took. And that was really hard for her. My sister struggled, and it took her a little bit longer to get through high school, but my mom worked every day with her. And so like that was, commitment, being an advocate. My mom taught me that from day one. And I lived in a household that was priority number one at all times. So I have to give a shout out to my mom. When I got into high school, one of the first people that outside of my family unit ever really sort of looked at me and said, hey, like you can do more, was actually my ag teacher. I was really involved in FFA, which is also not something that you would ever really hear me talk about in HR, but I was really involved in FFA, and I raised animals all the way starting in 3rd grade for livestock shows. And when I got to high school, I was lucky enough to have a female ag teacher, which was really like unique back then as well. Again, I'm not old, but this was a time where it was primarily men that were ag teachers. And I had a woman, her name was Karen Waters, and she came in and she was my ag teacher for all 4 years of high school. And she really pushed me to be my very, very best. And my first leadership role in an organization was actually in FFA. And I learned, again, a ton about service and people and communication throughout that organization. And so Karen was the first one to say, hey, Roseanne, like, I think you should run for an office, and I think that you should make a speech, and I think that you could do this. And then she really guided me in my 4 years there into doing that, which then, led to me going to college and seeking out mentors. I think that sometimes a lot of people don't realize you should have a mentor in every stage of your life, in my opinion. And we really think about mentors more once we get into our career and once we get into business. And really, you need a mentor always, because you need somebody that can help you and hold your hand when the times get tough, walking down that path. And so in college, I sought out mentors. And then obviously, one of the biggest things when I got to Kerbey as an HR department of one is I became really active in the Austin Human Resources Management Association. And one of my number one reasons for going there was that I was looking for mentors. I was looking for friends. I was looking for like-minded HR people. And I found all of that through ARMA. And I still to this day work with their mentoring program, and I still have people that I consider mentors to me, whether they realize they're mentors or not. They definitely still mentor me. And I still feel, even with Texas SHRM, that I get mentoring out of Texas SHRM, because I'm working with people like you, Bruce, and then I'm working with people who are further into their career that can really guide and teach me best next steps.
I absolutely love that. I love how you also shared how you're at the top, right? You're CHRO, but yet you still understand the importance of having a member. Tony Bridwell, you mentioned earlier you was at Brinker, and I had Tony on the show a few weeks ago, and of course he's a past leader for Brinker, and he talked about your personal board of directors, and he's talking about you should always have that mentor, maybe someone above you, maybe someone below you, maybe someone at your level along the way. But associations, a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of people will go to these local, in our case, SHRM associations, to build their network, and get more education. But that mentorship, seeing what a good mentor looks like, as well as what a not so good mentor looks like, as well, is a great place. Let's talk Texas SHRM. Great way to pivot into Texas SHRM. So you currently serve as the assistant state director, and you are basically, you have a team of district directors and core leadership areas in your group. Talk a little bit about, number one, you've shared a little bit about why you volunteer, but why it's important to volunteer. And then number two, what's your role with Texas SHRM, and how does that help others?
Yeah, so I love Texas SHRM. You know this. We work together through Texas SHRM, and it's a wonderful organization. As you said, I work with district directors and core leadership area directors. And so those individuals are people that SHRM and HR has pointed out are an area of emphasis, right? So like 4 chapters, membership, or diversity and inclusion, workforce readiness, certification. So those are really what the CLAs do, and they are subject matter experts ultimately. And then district directors, as you know, because you are a district director and you're one of the best ones I've ever seen, they really work directly with the chapter presidents to help drive the mission of the organization, and to help each of those chapters really meet their goals and problem solve. I mean, volunteer leadership is no different to me than the everyday paying job, in the sense that we have problems just like an organization have problems, and we have struggles. And sometimes, people quit on you and don't tell you. And, you've got chapter presidents that are really, really managing a board of people who have real life things happen and they can't necessarily finish out their commitment. And so sometimes we can help out with that. What I do with Texas SHRM is I work with you guys. So I make sure that we are supporting the chapters, effectively. I make sure that the two groups, the district directors and the CLAs, are talking to each other and are supporting each other. And when you have, a chapter or you have a district that needs support, we bring in that CLA so that CLA can help them get over the hump and really, be successful. Because that's the number one goal, right? Is to be successful, to be happy in what we're doing, to be successful, and to drive the organization forward and to make HR as a whole an even better, industry. I can't think of the right word I'm trying to look for right now, but you know what I mean.
Well, and I like what you said, it's about driving the mission at the end of the day. And for Texas SHRM, it's about, right? You're there to really connect and support these Texas SHRM chapter leaders. So we have 32, I think I said 33 earlier, but I think 32 chapters in the state of Texas. So we have a lot of great communities that are serving the HR profession in that group. And so a lot of people, I think, may not be aware of the opportunity they have at that local chapter level. And so when we're talking about Texas SHRM and Texas State Council, as we support these communities, hopefully we're able to help them attract different HR professionals in the community, right? So if someone's in HR and they don't belong to a local chapter, talk a little bit about how they could benefit from that. And does it really take that much time out of their day?
It really doesn't. I mean, I think that's one of the misconceptions about chapters is that, oh, well, if I become involved, I'm going to have to do this and I have to spend this many hours and I just don't have time for that. And that's absolutely not the case. I know that every single organization, every single chapter that we have in Texas has the ability to be a member where you're just attending and getting continuing education. You're listening to subject matter experts, which I think is one of the number one things that we do for HR people is we give them the chance to continue to learn, continue to be better. And, throughout what we're currently going through, which is unfortunately this horrible pandemic, HR has been hit really hard. And those of us that have been members of chapters, we have a network of people that we can turn to. And over the last several months, I've had people call me and I've called people that I know through Texas SHRM, that I know through the Austin chapter ARMA. And we're asking each other questions about unemployment. We're asking each other questions about, attorneys and, getting the best, answers for the questions as we navigate through so many new and uncharted territories. And, you can get so much out of your chapter. The list goes on and on. You get networking, you get friends, you can have peers. And again, continuing education is huge.
Yeah, so if someone wants to learn a little bit more about Texas SHRM, they could go to the Texas SHRM website, texasshRM.org, look for your local chapter in the area. And I'm with Roseanne. I encourage you to just reach out to someone and ask how you can get involved. And it will absolutely change your course in many different ways. Let's keep talking about leadership here. I mean, you're CHRO, you're a leader in the Texas SHRM State Council, and you're busy. You are busy. And so, but you still got to make time to lead yourself. And so I want to talk about leadership every day. I actually heard John Maxwell the other day. He said, when you're a leader, having 2 consecutive days in a row that are awesome is rare. And I was like, oh man, because what he was referring to was leadership is hard, right? We're dealing with people and working with people and dealing with issues. And so I was just wondering if you could maybe share a day in the life of Roseanne. Like, what does your day look like from the time you get up till the time you say, it's the end of the day? Do you have any leadership practices that you incorporate every day to help you keep on track?
Absolutely. So I will say you're right. I'm busy. I like to be busy. I find that I do best when I'm busy. I think that when I have more time on my hands, I don't get stuff done as well. And that's just something I've learned about myself. Everyone's different, but that's what works best for me. So know that. So really a day in the life of me is I actually wake up at about 4:30 every day, which I think will probably get a few gasps when they hear this. I wake up at about 4:30 every day. And the reason I do that is I love to wake up before the sun. I love to have that quiet time before the city is really up and running, before there's really any traffic, before there's anything that's going to cause a hurdle in my day. And I get up and one of the first things that I do is called morning pages. I don't know if you've ever heard about morning pages, but what it is it's basically you wake up and you immediately longhand, like pen and paper, you write 3 pages. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a story or coherent thoughts or sentences. You're waking up and you're starting your day, getting out whatever you're waking up with, and you're writing it 3 pages, just, longhand. And so I do that. That's one of the first things I do. Then I meditate. I find that I used to do that in the opposite order. I used to do meditation and then morning pages. And I find that I actually am much more centered in meditation if I've done the morning pages first, because I've sort of cleared my mind a little, which it's funny to think that you wake up with things on your mind, but you do. Every single one of us wakes up with things on our mind. And it's really important to me to start the day with my best foot forward. So I do morning pages, I do meditation, and then I work out. I am a really big runner. I find, again, that running gives me that quiet time to really clear my mind. I listen to podcasts when I'm running, which also really helps me to get motivated for my day. And then, after that, it's kind of the daily grind. Get ready, work, meetings, conference calls, check-ins with my team, getting those sorts of things done. A perfect day afterwards is that I get to go to dinner at some lovely, delicious restaurant, because I'm a foodie and I love food and I love trying new places. That's become a little bit harder lately. But I always end my day reading. I think that's another really big thing that helps me be able to rest well, is that I shut off all the screens. I disconnect myself from all the technology, and I just I go to bed reading a book. That's really my day.
Now that's fantastic. I'm curious, when is the first time you check your phone?
I try really hard not to look at my phone until I'm working out. So I definitely do not look at it for morning pages. I use it for meditation. I'm a big believer in the Calm app. So I use it for that, but I don't look at any emails or any text messages that I might wake up to until I am physically moving.
I love that. I'm finding that's a common thread for leaders that are really making a difference, like yourself. Having that morning routine, I like to say a system, and many. It's just like, I love what you said. I used to meditate before morning pages, and now after. And you had to find your lane. You had to find what works for you. And so it's a matter of, there's a lot of successful leaders out there. You just have to find what works for you, right?
Right. I mean, and success is also failure, right? Like, you don't wake up today and say, I'm going to be successful. Everything I touch is going to turn to gold. That doesn't happen to anyone. If it does, introduce me to that person. But I mean, you have to try things to fail. You have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to say, okay, well, I thought that was going to be my thing and it's not. And so now I'm going to try something else. And you keep on getting up every day. You keep on looking for the right path. You keep on looking for what works for you. It took me years to find the best morning routine for me. And when I found it, I'll be really honest, I kind of fought it a little bit, because I was like, 4:30 in the morning? Is that really? Is it like, world, tell me, is that really when I'm supposed to be waking up, is 4:30? And the world kept telling me, you were supposed to wake up at 4:30. So here I am. I'm now one of those people that wakes up super early.
Love it. I'm part of the 5 a.m. club. And so I remember, same for me. It kind of took me a little while to realize that worked best for me, but you just got to keep going. I want to pivot just real quick here. And, we're talking about, I mean, this is great advice, but I was curious, has anyone ever Has anyone ever shared some advice with you that it was so good that you share with others? Or is there any advice you would share with others that are looking to continue to just get better every day in the workplace?
Yeah, I will definitely say one of the best bits of advice that I ever got was the work that I'm doing today is going to make the life better for someone else. And so I had to really my mom used to say that all the time. She's like, the work we do today makes it easier for someone else tomorrow. And I didn't understand that as a kid, especially with chores. I was like, how is this making someone else's life better? It's just really hard for me. But when I put that in the work environment, it really is. It's like the work, especially as HR people that we do today, is making someone's life better tomorrow. Most of the time, especially if you're dealing with team member issues, for example, people are not coming to you on their very best day. They're coming to you because something has gone wrong. They need help, right? You are the person that they're looking to fix their problem. And so the work we do today really is making life easier for someone tomorrow.
That is fantastic. Oh my gosh. We could do this all day long, Roseanne. I love it. We got a few minutes left, and I want to shift over to the segment I like to call It's Time to Accelerate, and ask you a few questions as we get close to the end. So first question. I know you talked earlier about listening to podcasts. I know you talked about reading a book. What's your favorite book or podcast?
It's going to have to be book.
I love it.
Podcast. I love a podcast. I really, really do, but it's going to have to be book.
Yeah, I was actually looking at a book the other day that I pulled out that I'd read several years ago, and it was underlined, highlighted. You could bend the pages. I mean, yes, love that. Okay, you said you were a foodie. What's your favorite food?
Ooh, that's really hard because I really do love food. I'm going to say a food that I pretty much don't ever want to pass up is going to be pizza. I love a good pizza. A good slice of pizza is really makes me happy. But I'm also, I've recently become really obsessed with a certain type of pasta. I don't know if you've ever had it, just cacio e pepe, which really just is cheese and pepper pasta. It's really delicious. And I've actually I've figured out my own homegrown recipe. And so that's kind of my guilty pleasure right now.
Okay, next time I'm in Austin, I'm at your house. That sounds awesome. Oh my gosh. You talked a little bit about running. What are some other hobbies that you have other than loving to work?
Well, I love to read, right? We're going back to books. I love to write, which is another reason that reading helps me to be a better writer. When I can, I love to travel. I am a person who really likes to say yes and to check a new place off the list and to try something new. And then most recently, I've been learning hand embroidery, which is probably one of the hardest things that I've tried to learn recently. But it's fun and it's pretty.
Hand embroidering. I love that. I was trying to think. It seems like during this time of COVID, that's one of the silver linings is that a lot of people have talked about learning a lot of different things. So hand embroidery, I'm gonna have to check that out. Okay, you mentioned that you love to travel. Any favorite place that you've been? Or I actually have a bucket list of traveling to all 50 states, and I think I'm at 35 or so. You have a favorite place?
Well, you and I share the fact that that's on both of our bucket lists. I also want to go to all 50 states. So we'll have
How many do you have?
I have 38.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
We'll have to compare at some point.
Yes, we will.
I would say my favorite place to travel, a place where I can just really unwind and it feels almost like I'm completely off the grid, is going to be Hawaii, and most specifically Kauai. That's my favorite island because it's really the least touristy of all of them.
That's fantastic. Hawaii is one that I have not been to yet. So, okay, love it. Okay, so this is a final question. I love asking this question to all of my guests, and I would love to hear your response to this. And the question is, what is your 10-year older self, Roseanne, 10 years from now, is knocking at your door? What's she saying to you?
Well, it's actually a funny question because I write myself a letter on my birthday every year, and I started doing that when I was 20. So I've actually gone back and read some of those, and it's actually It's pretty interesting to read a letter to yourself when you were 20. So that's kind of funny, but I do it every year on my birthday. So I think, 10 years from now, what I would tell myself is, as we go through this time that is foreign to every single one of us, just be gentle with yourself. Like, don't push too hard, don't expect too much, do what feels right, follow your gut, and be gentle with yourself. Find the things that bring you joy and do them.
That is fantastic. Find the joy. That man, I love that. So this has been terrific. I am just so thrilled that you came onto the show today. If people wanted to learn a little bit more about you or Kirby Lane, how could they connect?
Yeah, so you can find Kirby Lane at KirbyLaneCafe.com, and then our sister restaurant, HighNoteATX.com. And so those are both of our restaurants. I encourage people to check those out. There's some mouth-watering food that we serve. And then personally, I am on LinkedIn. I am probably most active on Instagram as far as social media goes. And then obviously I'm on Facebook, so you can catch me there. But, the traditional social media places.
I love it, man. I tell you, this has been a joy for me just to be here with you today. You're definitely driving in the leadership lane. I've loved serving with you on the Texas State Council and just watching you lead. You do a terrific job, and I just appreciate you coming on today and sharing your wisdom and perspective with everyone. And most importantly, I appreciate your friendship.
Yeah, no, Bruce, thank you. This was a joy. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to continuing to work together.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too.